What happens when law, business, and life collide? Each week on Lead Counsel, your host Tom Tona will take a deep dive into topics related to the law, the business of law, and life. There will be insightful discussions with industry insiders, experts, and thought leaders making significant contributions and meaningful differences in their fields of expertise. Tom is the founder and managing attorney at TonaLaw. He has been a practicing attorney since 1994 and the leader of TonaLaw since it opened in 2001. The goal of this podcast is to provide you with free information on law and the business of law, and to give you actionable tools related to each of these areas. Now, here's Tom.
Hey, what's going on? Welcome to the Lead Counsel podcast. I'm your host, Tom Tona. I'm here with Jules. Jules is the marketing person at TonaLaw. She's a good friend and my sometimes co-host. Welcome, Jules.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our podcast.
All right. So today we're just going to dive down a little deeper on what we're doing this podcast for, why we're podcasting. Among all of the podcasts that are out there, why should people listen to us? So, Jules, let's just jump in real quick and give the people a little snapshot of why we're doing this.
Of course. So, Tom, what was your career path before you have started this podcast?
Okay. So, personal injury attorney, started my own law firm in 2001, went to the scaling entrepreneurial phase of my career and started to bring on attorneys to do the legal work so I could provide scale services and systems that maintain the quality that no matter how large we grew, we were going to continue providing superior lawyering to people. What brought me to the podcast was realizing how much tremendous value I have gained over the years in terms of knowledge and experience and the people that are in my inner circle, that I really felt like I could contribute and give value to the people that would be listening, the general public, in analyzing their legal issues and spotting their legal issues and prioritizing and how to deal with their legal issues. And then having on different guests in their chosen field, like the top matrimonial attorney in Long Island, bringing him on, how he's different, what sets him apart, that type of thing. And so delivering value to other attorneys, which I do regularly now through LinkedIn and phone calls and webinars that I do. There are so many attorneys that are unhappy in their careers and they don't know why and they don't know how to change it. And then there are people that are on their entrepreneurial journey themselves. They're thinking about starting their own law firm. They're thinking about they're in their own law firm, but they're struggling, right? So I thought I could deliver value that way as well. And then the last piece is opening my inner circle up to everybody. My inner circle is extremely high value. They provide tremendous value. And I thought that I would love to share that with anybody that chooses to listen, right? And they'll give out their contact information and you'll be able to contact them in whatever state they're in or whatever field they're in. So I really wanted to also provide just free tools to people in relation to all of these different topics that we're going to cover. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's why we are doing this right now.
And how did your experiences prepare you to become a podcast host?
I have gained significant experience through the mistakes that I've made, that I have a set of skills now that relate to the business of law and running a law firm. And my experiences in the courtroom, my experiences as a litigator, my experiences in the chosen fields of personal injury, no-fault collections, and contract litigation, as well as my 22 years running my own law firm, make me uniquely qualified to discuss the topics that we're going to be going over.
So why are you so passionate about podcasting?
I derive tremendous value from podcasts. You know, how many podcasts do I share with you a given week?
Probably at least 5 every week.
Right. I think it's a very personalized, intimate way to learn from other people that are doing what you want to be doing, or learning what you want to avoid doing that other people are doing. Mm-hmm. Right. So not every podcast is great. I get that. I do think that I derive tremendous value from it. And I'm all about the value proposition, especially it's free. People listen to it when it's convenient for them. right? So I'm passionate about it because I love it as a medium for learning. And that's how I plan on presenting, all of the topics and all of the guests that I plan on talking to.
And how do you plan on making your podcast stand out from the thousands that people can listen to?
I'm going to make it very simple to understand, and I want to make it widely accessible, right? So for the general public, I think most of the general public has a really bad perception of lawyers. And for other lawyers don't necessarily think the same. And I think that if they see there's a different way to do what they're doing, it might have a significant impact on them. So again, I think it's all in the value proposition. So if I can do things that are not being done or presenting in a way that has not been done, then that's my ultimate goal. And I think that will draw people in. I know plenty of people that have asked me to speak. Plenty of people have asked me to do webinars on certain things that I do from a marketing perspective, right? So when I'm breaking down how do you lead a law firm at the stage that we're at, somebody who's much smaller might find value in that, right? Because if they want to go to where we're at. So we'll talk about marketing, finance, operations, HR, all of those things. And we may talk about them in one episode or break them out into separate episodes.
And now when people look at the podcast, they may think it's just for attorneys or just for other lawyers or entrepreneurs. So how do you plan on providing value to the general public? And how do you plan on bringing in their attention as well?
The general public from 18 to, let's say, 40 are their prime years where they're going to encounter legal issues, right? How old are you?
23.
Drive a car?
Yep.
Ever speed?
Sometimes.
Okay. You could have legal issues from that, right? Or you're going to buy a house, or you're going to get married, or you're married and you're going to get divorced. There's right ways to approach legal issues, and then there is suboptimal ways to approach legal issues. Optimal and suboptimal. So rather than having to go consult with an attorney for 45 minutes to an hour and many times having to pay them for that hour, I'm going to just give away tools on, do you have a legal issue? So many people aren't aware that they do or ignore something they shouldn't and make it far worse. And the guests that I plan on having on will speak to the different facets of legal issues that people can have. I'm not an expert in everything, right? I have chosen to narrow my field to personal injury, no-fault collections, contract litigation, and we also do, subspecialties of like personal injury with mass torts, stuff like that. So if you're going through a divorce, I'm going to have a top divorce attorney on. He's going to give you the top 5 things you can do so that your divorce is not super expensive and super wasteful and super hurtful to you and the people in your life. And so, yeah, you'll get that for free, right? So that's how I plan on helping the general public, is by helping them. I get calls all the time, probably anywhere from 2 to maybe 10 calls a week on people that do not need a lawyer or should not be hiring a lawyer at the level that their issues are at. So I plan on explaining how to look at those issues, right? How to understand what's going on in your own brain that's leading you to even pick up and call an attorney, right? So yeah, I think that in the prime earning years of your life are also the prime years where legal issues will come up and need to be resolved. It's no different than having a doctor on speed dial. Think of us as your lawyer on speed dial. I hope this podcast becomes the Lawyer on Speed Dial podcast. That's not the name of it. It's Lead Counsel, but that's the concept behind it. If you have an issue, come to our podcast and we will be talking about this. And you can also reach us on social media and hit us with questions you have, right? We have we have a growing following on TikTok, all thanks to you, Jules. And, people hit us up on there, right? I'm on LinkedIn pretty much daily, and I'm talking about the business of law, entrepreneurship, litigation, and the 3 silos that I'm really deep in, which is, again, litigation, no-fault collections, and contract litigation. So I'm open to talking about any topics that people have questions on.
Yeah, and I feel like people call our office all the time with heightened emotions, just not complaining, but describing these issues that they're having, and you'll spend so much time being like, listen, you just need to do a sort of cost analysis and realize that this does not require an attorney. And now I feel like with the podcast, we can do that on a bigger scale and help more people who may be spending thousands of dollars in lawyer fees when really they don't need to be.
Right.
Remember that one phone call that you had about the soil? Tell that story.
Yeah. So I had a person call up whose husband bought soil from a landscaper, and he thought he was getting a great deal, and he paid for cash. And I'm not sure if it was like a side of the road deal or what it was. So the husband buys the soil, he goes home, he puts down all of this topsoil, and the town comes by, and I guess the soil was tainted with some kind of chemicals. And this person got in significant, trouble because of the tainted chemicals in the soil. And the person was looking to hire an attorney. And I actually talked them out of it because I said, look, you don't know who you bought it from. You need to remediate these issues with the soil. Like, you have to remove it rather than spending $10,000 to hire a law firm. Spend the $10,000 to remediate the problem and work with the town on the fine. They will work with them. But what is hiring a lawyer going to do? I mean, I could go and work with the town on the fine, right? But they still need to do the remediation. So the first step was remediating the problem, which they were told to do, and then contact the town and say, look, I had no idea it was tainted. I bought it. It had chemicals in it. It's all cleaned up. I've remedied everything. And then, can you work with me on the fine? So without knowing who to go after, and they paid for it in cash, they had no proof of the purchase, it wouldn't have been the right thing for them to retain me. So I talked them out of it, and stuff like that comes up every day. And most of the time when people call me, it is an emotional response that first thing we have to do is diffuse those emotions to analyze whatever issues there are in a unemotional way.
And you've only started making content fairly recently. I mean, you've always had a social media presence, but it's really only taken off in the past year or two. And what drives you to continue creating content?
Value, providing value, again, because I hate social media for the most part, and you know that, right? But I do believe that, again, it comes down to a medium of education that is highly effective, right? So I came up with a plan to provide value where people wanted to be communicated with, right? So the younger generation, they want to be communicated with where?
On TikTok.
Right. And TikTok is, I think, one of the largest, if not the largest, search engine right now. So when somebody in their 20s is in a car accident or sued for breach of contract, or if they're a medical provider in their 30s and they have a no-fault question, they might go to TikTok instead of Google, right? So I wanted to be on TikTok, even though it's not necessarily my favorite thing to do. I wanted to be on TikTok to communicate with people where they wanted to be communicated with. It's a different model. The field of law has changed so much, right, with the onslaught of technology, that I chose to evolve the law firm to adapt, right? Be cutting edge. Go where clients or potential clients or just the general public want to be communicated with. Hundreds of millions of people on TikTok daily tells me we're going to be on TikTok and we're going to be giving them the content that they want. And TikTok doesn't care. It's like anything else in the free market. So if what you put out is good, people respond. And you saw we put out a couple of things about the Camp Lejeune cases, and we had 200,000 views. I think it was something like that, some crazy amount.
Yeah, just about.
Right? And then we had people calling our office because of it. And similarly, on LinkedIn, I put out a lot of stuff about the entrepreneurial side of the practice of law. And I think it's good for people in general public to also hear that stuff and tune into that, because when you're dealing with a firm of a certain size, you can still get excellent service and you do get more resources, right? Would you rather have a law firm that has one attorney who, if that attorney is having something horrific go on in his life, now you don't have any backup in a case that's critical to you? Or would you rather have a law firm that has 7, 10, or 30 attorneys, or 7 attorneys and then 25 support team members? right? So if one attorney's out, you got 6 that can back them up and supports that, right? But you have to understand what comes along with that trade-off, right? Of having a larger firm representing you in terms of communication is going to be a little bit different, right? It should still exist. It should still exist. And that's one of the bigger complaints that a lot of people have is lack of communication from their lawyer or law firm. So I think that I'm also trying to give people a peek behind the curtain of what does a 33-person law firm operate like behind the scenes, right? Know who your lawyer is. So hopefully my clients will listen to this and get a much better understanding of who the people are in the law firm, what their positions are, and what we're doing behind the scenes, right? Because as you get bigger, you get more clients. And those more clients, they still have the same needs. They want to hear from their attorneys.
Yes. And can you explain how the podcast is going to be set up?
Sure. So I'm shooting for once a week. I'm shooting to release them on Thursdays, and I'm shooting to keep it between a half an hour and an hour long. But if we get somebody who's got a lot of value to deliver, I might chop it into 2 episodes or more. Again, it's something that I really have looked forward to doing for a long time. And even though it got off to a rocky start, you've done a great job in helping me get motivated to do this. So I want to thank you for that.
Of course, yes. And for everybody listening, by the way, this is like our 4th time trying to record these. But this is the one, we're taking it. And I know that you mentioned you're going to have matrimonial attorneys on, but what other kind of guests can people expect to hear from?
Sure. So law firm leaders of all sizes, right? So 7-figure law firm leaders, 8-figure law firm leaders. I'm going to try to get 9-figure law firm leaders on here, though they tend to be a little more private. Matrimonial attorneys that I know, disability attorneys that I know, all these areas of law, workers' compensation attorneys that I know, all these areas of law that so many people in the general public are dealing with one or more of these types of cases and attorneys, right? And I want them to hear also the difference because the practitioners that I deal with practice differently, right? So I can't tell you a number of times I hear complaints about other personal injury firms or other litigation firms, other no-fault firms, that I basically listen to all those complaints and I then weave that into the fabric of what we don't want to be. And I build systems around making sure that those complaints will never be complaints against, us that people would have. I know that communication is a huge issue and people complain about it all the time. I have people that are employed at my law firm and their sole job is reaching out by email, by phone, by text message, by however the clients want. And when I get hit up on social media, I'm responding. That is me in the inbox on LinkedIn or in the DMs in, TikTok. I know sometimes you're in TikTok too, but we're tending to the platforms we're on. So yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah.
That's important for people to know.
And not only do you have a great circle of attorneys as peers, but you also have a great circle of other entrepreneurs as peers. And you are a great entrepreneur yourself. So what other kind of entrepreneurs can people expect to hear from?
My main goal in the guests I bring on are to put people on that are the real deal. The number of gurus that are holding themselves out there as gurus makes me sick. It makes me sick. And there's one image that keeps popping into my head. I can't say the person's name. I want to punch my phone every time I see it. I'm like, dude, you haven't been practicing law for 5 years and you're telling people how to do things and you're selling your services to these lawyers. And these lawyers must really be lost because they don't know the difference. And I'm hoping this podcast lands on those people because my first piece of advice is never hire somebody that is in their first 5 years as your guru. That's not your guru. That's not your coach. They haven't made the mistakes yet that even warrant them using the label coach.
I think I know who you're talking about. We're not going to say it, but...
I'm going to punch my phone. I'm going to punch my computer right now.
Don't do that.
I might. So with regard to the inner circle, I want to bring on, these people are going to be the real deal. If you hear the names that'll be on there, many of them are known nationwide, and many of them are the thought leaders in the space. Right. So if I'm bringing on a coach, they're running a coaching entity or they're part of a coaching entity that's been around for 25 years. And that's how they make all of their revenue. And they have training programs and certifications. They didn't just wake up one day and go, I'm a coach today. And it's always a red flag, by the way, to me. The same person opens up whatever's hot and new. So in our space, VAs, virtual assistants, that was the hot thing. Right now, it's the hot thing. Now I've had a team of VAs in India and in the Philippines for the last 10 years. Right? We have a team of like 15 people overseas right now. I didn't open up a VA service. I didn't say I'm a VA guru. I'm not trying to sell people those services. The same coach now opened up a VA service and he's changed the name of his coaching service 4 times. I'm going to punch my phone. I can't. This is making me angry now. The people that I'm going to put on are not on a merry-go-round of what can they sell today that's the flavor of the month. That should be a red flag. When somebody's like, oh, I just opened up a VA service and I'm a coach and I have a practice. Man, all in 5 years. Which are you today? Come on, you're not a coach. You're not a coach. You're just trying to get by. You're trying to make some money on a cash grab. That's all it is. And that I want the opposite of that. People that I'm going to bring on, they're already established. They've been doing whatever they're doing decades, 20 years or more. It's not going to be the guru. And I'm using air quotes, but it's not going to be somebody who's calling themselves the guru. It's going to be somebody who has a following because they deserve to have a following, because they know what they're talking about. And they're providing value at scale. Sorry, I got a little heated on that question. You got me all fired up.
No, that's great. That's what people want. They want to hear the real Tom.
Wow.
And honestly, those last couple minutes, that's the real Tom.
That's as real as it can get.
That's what you get every day.
Look, how I plan on distinguishing ourselves is the guests that I will have on are the real deal. There's just too many gurus on the internet. It makes me crazy. And you triggered me with that question, but yeah, I don't even know if I answered your question now. I got so blinded with rage.
And we're not trying to establish ourselves as gurus. Let's just put that out there.
No, man, I'm not a guru. I can tell you I'll be very transparent about mistakes that I've learned tremendous amounts from, but have been significantly painful. And if I can avoid those mistakes and I can help somebody else avoid those mistakes and save that money, that's value. That's what I'm trying to provide. And even as it spills into the personal life, right? Like I don't get it right every time and I am a lawyer. And so I have certain things I do that minimize the risk of getting it wrong.
That's awesome. I love that.
So I do appreciate everybody tuning in. You can listen to us everywhere you find podcasts, Apple, Google, Spotify. If you are listening, please leave us feedback, like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. And if you want to get in touch with us, just Google TonaLaw, TonaLaw. You'll find us all over the internet, every social media platform. The 2 big ones that we're on right now are LinkedIn and TikTok. You can always DM us on there, and we'll always get back to you right away. And I really appreciate people tuning in because our main goal is to provide value, and I'm hoping that that will resonate with people. So I just want to say thank you for spending your time with us. And that's it.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm out.